Hi. You know what time it is? It's time to plant seeds, or in my mind it is, if my dogs don't knock me over. If you're like me, you're thinking, when do I get to start seeds? It's been raining so much in our area. Well, that's what I'm going to show you today, is how I'm going to start my seeds this year. If you're waiting for transplants, you can skip this part. But then I want you to stay tuned, because we're going to time travel to Harvest Day to see what we can do with fresh tomatoes. So, you've found Tina, the girl in the garden, and I'd like to welcome you here. If it's your first time, if you've been here before, thank you for returning. And let's just dig in and start planting our tomato seeds. Actually, I have a few seeds I'm going to plant today, 3 actually. But this year I decided to do them in red Solo cups. They're not a Solo brand. I just took a steak knife and poked holes in the bottom so that I could stick these in water and they could water from the bottom when necessary. But until then, I've got me some wet soil in here, and I've actually, and it's still dripping, I've actually written with a pen what I'm planting here. So the first thing I'm going to plant is my Thorn Burns terracotta tomato, which I got from Baker Creek. I'm going to read the back of my seed pack because it's going to give me a lot of information. And you're probably saying, but Tina, last year you said that you didn't have a grow room. I don't. I might look into one little strip of grow lights though, if this weather continues like it is. All right, so these seeds are really small and they don't have to go in very deep. I think it says 1/4 of an inch. So I just use my finger usually and poke a hole down in there. And I am going to plant 3 seeds. Hopefully I get 3 plants. If not, hopefully I get at least 1. And then I just scoot the dirt over them. I just use regular potting soil, so when I get big chunks, I take them out. And then I'm just going to keep the soil moist and warm. So because I don't have a grow room right now, I use my washroom. So when you do laundry, right, create some humidity and the dryer is warm. I put a space heater in there sometimes to keep it warm if we're not doing laundry. And I have 1 fluorescent light, which isn't enough if it's going to rain for the next week. All right, so the next thing we're planting is, I don't even know how to pronounce it, Paradisium aluca sargacensis. It's a pepper. And I want to see what these are like, because I didn't have any come up last year because of all the issues we had. And my seeds are stuck on the side. Again, it's 1/4 inch deep, so the same thing. I'm just going to use my finger, poke it down in there. I didn't want to fight with the other seeds, so I'm just going to do 2 in here. Gonna cover it up, and that's all I've done. As you can see, the holes are gonna drip water, so don't put this anywhere you don't want water to drip. And then of course, because we love jalapenos, I'm also gonna get my jalapenos started. Oops, I don't need that many. Again, the back of the seed pack, it's 1/4 inch deep. Take my finger, push it in. All right, so this one is a little soggy. So let me push out some water. You don't want your dirt real soggy, and I guess I let this one soak a little too much. So we're just gonna figure that out here real quick. All right. So again, like I said before, I just use my fingers. Drop in my seeds, hoping to get 3 plants. Good if I get 1 plant. So do you know does anybody know a good place to get a small strip of growing lights? That's what I need. And this year I did get covers for my seeds to put them in to try to stay organized. So anyway, so that's basically how I'm going to be planting all my seeds. So I'm going to go ahead and get those planted. But remember, I said to stay tuned because we're going to be test tasting how we can use fresh tomatoes. So now it's time for us to time travel into the kitchen up to harvest day. Oh, boy, safe landing from that time travel. All right, glad you stuck with me. Hopefully you did not have a hard landing. All right, so now we're gonna dig in the kitchen. It is harvest day. And you know when it's harvest day, especially the first day of harvest, you don't always get a lot of tomatoes. You get a few. Well, what do? Well, I came across this recipe on allrecipes.com, I'll link it below, for tomato jam. So in my pan here, I've got a mess already going on because I spilled, is 2 pounds of tomatoes. The recipe calls for fresh chopped tomatoes. I had a bunch in my freezer from last season, so I decided that that would probably be okay. All right, so we're actually gonna make 2 of these recipes. One, just like the recipe on allrecipes.com. The other one, we like spice. I'm gonna throw in some jalapenos. That looks like a lot of jalapeno, so I'm not quite sure how much we're going to throw in. So the other thing is because it does call for chopped tomatoes, and these tomatoes, although they were frozen, I had not chopped them up. So I'm actually gonna use my immersion blender when these start making more juice, and I'm gonna get rid of some of the clumpiness of the tomatoes because I don't like big chunks of tomatoes. All right, so here we have our sugar and our salt. Turn that down a little bit. So I'm gonna dump that in. I'm gonna give it a good stir so that sugar can start to melt away, right? Melt away. Dissolve, that's what I'm looking for. This is apple cider vinegar. It calls for a small, sweet white onion. I had a red onion, and they're all different sizes. This was the smallest one I had, so I'm just gonna dump it all in. We like onions. So it says to heat this up until the sugar dissolves. So that's what we're gonna do. So remember, we're doing 2 batches, one just like the recipe, one with jalapeno to see what it tastes like. I'll link the recipe below. So now basically I have to cook this for like an hour. Yes, I gotta stand here and stir for an hour. Can we time travel? No. Okay, so that's what's gonna be happening. And actually it feels pretty much like the sugar's pretty much dissolved. So my tomato bacon jam needs its bacon. So I have already cooked my bacon and chopped it up. It's a 1/2 pound. It goes in. And it calls for a splash of Tabasco. I'm not a Tabasco fan. But I asked Kyle what a splash was. Kyle, what is a splash? Splash? I always think I should do too. So, and if you're not eating fresh tomatoes, there's other ways you can prepare tomatoes, right? But do you know what's good about tomatoes? I should eat more of them. More fresh tomatoes because I don't like them, right? But anyway, they have the great antioxidant lycopene in them. They've got vitamin C, vitamin K, potassium, folate, however you say that word. They've got just lots of nutrition, and there's so many different ways you can cook it. So we're gonna let this cook down. We're gonna get our other batch started. We're gonna let it cook down for an hour, and then we'll come back and me and Kyle will be doing a taste test. And then we have one more recipe for you after that. So give us a moment and we'll be back. Time happens so fast around here, it's amazing. All right, so our first tomato jam is done. And you see it's the consistency of jam. Kyle tasted it. He thought it was pretty good. And then I want to give you some different ideas of how you could serve it. So just like my cream cheese is not soft, so I just want to put a little bit on. You could do it over the cream cheese bar. You could put a little bit on toasted bread or baguettes. You could put a little bit just on a cracker. Okay, I have not tasted it really, so let me give this a try. What you hear in the background is our second batch with the jalapenos. Kind of tastes like a plum. I don't like the big piece of skin though. That's probably why you're supposed to chop them up. Do you want to try some on a cracker? So, it's sweet. I guess I should finish chewing. It does have a little bit of a tomato flavor, but I'm going to say it reminds me more of a plum flavor. Maybe that's because of the sweetness from the sugar, a little bit of zing from the Tabasco sauce. But that's pretty darn good. How else could you use it? Well, excuse me. I think I choked myself there. You could cut down on the sugar, and you could use it to top scrambled eggs. We'll see what it tastes like with jalapeno, but I'm thinking you could put that on a taco. Again, because of the sweetness, I'm thinking that you're gonna have to cut down on the amount of sugar used. But anyway, that's our tomato bacon jam. It was a lot of fun learning to make it, and the process is super simple, super simple. So I have one more recipe to show you, and let me get all my ingredients out, and I'll be back to show you what we're gonna make next. Well, that was fast, wasn't it? So off camera, remember I'm showing you another recipe. Where am I at here? Off camera, I quickly chopped, I should say sliced, some cucumbers. I peeled them first, sliced them, red onions, and cherry tomatoes. So the recipe actually does have specific amounts, and I'll link the recipe that I use below. I didn't follow the recipe exactly. I kind of used what I had on hand. And then the dressing is vinegar, water, olive oil, a little bit of sugar, salt, and pepper. So I'll give you another look. And then you just let it marinate for 1.5 to 2 hours. So I don't like tomatoes, so I'm gonna leave that to Kyle to taste. But let's give it a try. I'm gonna get me, I like onions, so I assume I'm gonna like the onions. Yeah, I do like that. That onion hit me in the cheek. So I'm not a fan of things that are vinegar based, but this isn't bad. I kind of think I would like it to be marinated in like an Italian dressing, or maybe even a creamy Italian.
A balsamic.
Oh, a balsamic would be good too. Yeah, but it's a great combination. What do you think, Kyle? You had a little bit of all?
Tasty.
So, so now we're not going to eat all this tonight. And that's a lot of juice. So I think I'm going to drain some off because I don't like things that get real soggy. But anyway, that's a couple of ways to use fresh tomatoes. And really you can scour the internet, YouTube, Google, Yahoo, whatever you do, and find recipes to use fresh tomatoes. Remember, if you get too many that you can't use before they're going to go bad, you can always stick them right in the freezer. Just know once you do that, when you take them out, You cannot use them like you do a fresh tomato. They're not going to have the same texture. Okay? So, thanks for sticking out the evening with us. We appreciate it. We do try to keep our videos a little bit on the short side because we know that you're busy, and we so appreciate you taking the time to watch us. Again, this is Tina, the girl in the garden. Before you bug out, give us a thumbs up, hit the subscribe button so you can see what happens when our tomatoes germinate. All right? All right, we'll see you next time. And again, thanks a lot.